Hi, my name is Todd Smith, and my wife and I decided to install solar panels on our home here in Jasper, Georgia. The reason we decided to do that is severalfold. One, we wanted to reduce our carbon footprint and use green sources of energy to power our home. And then secondly, we wanted to address the concerns about climate change. Well, using the solar panels now, the federal government gives you a 30% tax credit, and the price of the panels have come down drastically over the last few years. So we installed what's considered 4 kilowatts of solar. That's 4,000 watts. And it's 16 panels that produce 250 watts apiece in peak sunlight. The traditional way of solar power was you mounted your solar panels and then you went down to a large inverter that created alternating current from the DC current that the panels make. The problem with that setup was that as the shade moved across your panels in the morning and in the afternoon, it affected the whole series of panels. So now they've gone to the microinverter, and there's a microinverter for every panel. So it does the same thing. It converts the DC power from the panel to alternating power for your home. But there's one for every panel, so if shade hits one panel, it doesn't affect all the panels. It only affects the output of that one panel. Here you can see the underside of the panel, and the panel comes pre-wired with the two connectors, and those two connectors just plug directly into your microinverter. So the cable comes from the roof down to here to the disconnect, and then it goes to the panel box and to the house. Okay, from the two disconnects outside that we saw earlier, the cable runs to the panel, and you see our two solar lines here and two 20-amp breakers that feed the power into the panel. This feeds it into the house, and if we're producing more energy than we're using, it feeds it out onto the electrical grid. Okay, this is our data control panel, and it tells us the total kilowatt hours we've produced since it started running, which has been 2 weeks, whether we have any alarm statuses on our microinverters. And then here's the 2,800 watts per hour is what we're producing currently right now. It's 11 o'clock and it's a sunny day, so we're producing 2,800 watts right now. Here's the total that we produced in the last 2 weeks, and we're at about 83% efficiency. So that means the sun's not quite straight up in the sky. There's a misconception that the panels will always put out 100% of the power as soon as sunlight hits them, but there's several factors. One, it can be cloudy out. Two, the angle of the sun isn't directly overhead and hitting the panels directly. And in our case here in Georgia, we have a lot of hazy days. So even if the sun is directly overhead and you'd think they'd be putting out 100%, they may only be putting out 90% of their rated power output. This is a net meter that Amicalola installed, our local utility provider installed specifically for solar applications. What it does is it reads both the amount of energy that you're putting out onto the grid when your solar panels are producing power, and then it reads how much you pull off the grid when you're using power from the grid. Most months we'll be lucky to just produce the amount of energy we use. Like in the winter and especially in the summer when we start using air conditioning, then we size the system to basically, we're hoping that over the course of the year it would produce 90 to 100% of our power, okay, but we're not sure. So the question is solar worth it? And I say absolutely it is. with the current federal tax credit of 30%, this system will pay for itself in 10 to 12 years. So you could actually refinance your house on a 15-year mortgage, and your energy savings from the system would pay for the system. And the energy savings from electricity, your electric bill, would pay for the portion of your mortgage. And then the solar panels have a 25-year warranty. So once they're paid off, you have free power for a minimum of 10 years. And a lot of panels last a lot longer than that. You're also not producing any harmful pollutants, no particulate matter, no mercury from coal plants, and we're producing green power that produces no CO2, no greenhouse gases that could change our climate in the future. So it's absolutely worth it. If you substituted electric power and charged an electric car and substituted the gas savings, this same setup would power an electric Nissan Leaf 15,000 miles a year. So if you traded in your Honda Accord for a Nissan Leaf, it would save you about $2,100 a year in gasoline savings at $3.50 a gallon. So it would pay for itself in 3 years of gas savings if you were charging an electric car and running your car all on solar power. So solar is definitely worth it, and I hope you'll look into it and consider it as a source of energy.